There's a place in Chernobyl so radioactive that standing near it for just 5 minutes will kill you within 2 days. Not eventually, not maybe, guaranteed death. This isn't the reactor core. It's not some contaminated forest. It's something far stranger and more terrifying. A mass of solidified nuclear fuel so deadly that when scientists first photographed it, the radiation destroyed the camera from the inside. Today, I'm taking you inside the basement of Reactor 4 to see the most dangerous object humanity has ever created, and the story of how it came to exist will make you realize just how close we came to losing half of Europe. Stay with me, because what happened in that basement is still killing the building from within, and nobody knows how to stop it. April 26, 1986. Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant explodes during a safety test gone catastrophically wrong. The explosion blows the 1,000-ton reactor lid off like a bottle cap, sends radioactive debris kilometers into the sky, and exposes the reactor core directly to the atmosphere. But here's what most people don't know. The explosion was just the beginning. What happened in the hours and days after the blast created something that shouldn't exist. Something so dangerous that even today, nearly 40 years later, it remains one of the deadliest things on planet Earth. When the reactor exploded, temperatures inside reached over 5,000 degrees Celsius. The nuclear fuel, the control rods, the steel, the concrete, everything began to melt together into a hellish radioactive lava. This molten mass, glowing with heat and packed with enough radiation to kill instantly, began flowing through the destroyed reactor building like something alive. It burned through floors, melted through steel beams, and poured down into the basement levels below, seeking the lowest point it could reach. Scientists and emergency workers had no idea this was happening. They were focused on the fire, on evacuating nearby towns, on trying to contain the disaster unfolding above ground. Nobody was thinking about what was happening in the basement. The molten corium, as it's technically called, flowed through hallways and rooms, solidifying as it cooled into bizarre formations. Some look like frozen lava flows. Others formed stalactites hanging from ceilings. But one formation was different. One was absolutely massive. In a corridor beneath Reactor 4, a huge mass of this radioactive material had pooled and solidified. When workers finally ventured into the basement months later, they found it. A giant, wrinkled formation that looked disturbingly organic, almost like wrinkled skin or the foot of some enormous elephant. They called it the elephant's foot. The elephant's foot is roughly 2 meters wide and weighs hundreds of tons. It's composed of uranium, zirconium, graphite, sand, and dozens of other materials, all fused together in the heat of the meltdown into a new substance that didn't exist anywhere else in nature. And it's emitting radiation at levels that are almost incomprehensible. When it was first discovered in 1986, standing near the elephant's foot would give you a fatal dose of radiation in under a minute. We're talking about 10,000 roentgens per hour. For reference, a fatal dose is about 500 roentgens total. You'd be absorbing your entire lethal dose in about 3 minutes, and you'd be dead within 48 hours, vomiting blood as your cells literally fell apart. Would you have the courage to go down into that basement, knowing that an invisible force could kill you in minutes? The workers who first found it didn't have a choice. They were part of the liquidators, the hundreds of thousands of people sent in to clean up Chernobyl and prevent an even worse disaster. These men knew the risks, but the Soviet government wasn't exactly honest about just how deadly some areas were. Here's where this story gets even more disturbing. The first attempts to photograph the elephant's foot failed completely. They'd send a camera down into the corridor, snap a photo, and when they developed the film, it would be completely fogged by radiation. The gamma rays were so intense, they were destroying the photographic emulsion. Eventually, they figured out a solution. They attached a camera to a wheeled cart, sent it down the hallway, and had it take pictures while moving, minimizing exposure time. Even then, many of the photos came out blurred and damaged. The most famous photograph of the elephant's foot shows a man standing next to it, or rather, his blurred silhouette. That image has circulated online for years, with claims that the man died shortly after. The truth is slightly different, but no less grim. The photo was taken by a worker named Artur Korneyev in the mid-90s, about 10 years after the disaster. By then, radiation levels had decreased significantly, dropping to around 1,000 Roentgens per hour. Still deadly, still enough to kill you with prolonged exposure, but survivable for a very brief visit. Korneyev and others made multiple trips into that corridor over the years, each time spending no more than a few seconds near the mass. But here's the terrifying part. The elephant's foot is still there, still radioactive, and it's still causing problems. In the first years after the disaster, scientists worried it would bore through the concrete floor beneath it and reach the groundwater table. If that happened, the radioactive material could contaminate the Pripyat River, which feeds into the Dnieper River, which supplies water to millions of people, including the entire city of Kyiv. We're talking about a potential contamination event that could make large parts of Ukraine uninhabitable. To prevent this nightmare scenario, the Soviets ordered the construction of a massive concrete pad beneath the reactor, essentially freezing the ground and creating a barrier between the elephant's foot and the water table. Miners worked in brutal conditions, digging a tunnel under Reactor 4 in extreme heat and radiation to pour this protective layer. Many of those miners are dead now, killed by the radiation they absorbed during that operation. But their work may have saved millions of lives. Now here's something that will shock you. The elephant's foot is still changing. In the years after it formed, it was incredibly hard, harder than concrete. Scientists tried to drill samples from it, and their drill bits broke. The intense radiation had transformed the material into something extraordinarily dense and resistant. But decades later, that same radiation is now destroying it from within. The material is becoming brittle, developing cracks, turning to dust in some places. The elephant's foot is slowly killing itself. But in doing so, it's creating a new problem: radioactive dust that could spread through the building. This is why the new safe confinement, that massive steel arch built over Reactor 4 in 2016, is so important. It's not just keeping radiation in, it's preventing rain from seeping into the building, which could cause the elephant's foot and other radioactive materials to degrade faster. The structure is designed to last 100 years, but the elephant's foot will remain deadly for thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years.
We've essentially created a problem that will outlast our civilization.
Here's a detail that makes this even more unsettling. The elephant's foot isn't the only corium formation in the basement. There are other masses, other flows of solidified nuclear lava scattered throughout the lower levels of Reactor 4. Some are easier to access than others. Some haven't been properly documented because the radiation is still too intense. The basement of Chernobyl is basically a maze of deadly radioactive sculptures, each one unique, each one capable of killing anyone who gets too close. Scientists who've studied the elephant's foot have learned things about nuclear materials that couldn't be learned any other way. The formation represents a type of nuclear accident material that had only been theorized before Chernobyl. By analyzing it remotely when possible, they've gained insights into how reactor meltdowns progress, how materials behave under extreme radiation and heat, and how to potentially prevent or mitigate future disasters. The elephant's foot is a horrifying monument to human error, but it's also an inadvertent scientific resource. There's also the psychological impact on those who've seen it in person. Multiple liquidators and scientists have described an almost supernatural dread when approaching the elephant's foot. Your mind knows you're in danger, even if you can't see, smell, or feel the radiation. Some reported feeling nauseous almost immediately, though whether that was radiation sickness or pure fear is hard to say. One researcher described it as looking at death itself, a physical manifestation of invisible destruction. The long-term plan for the elephant's foot is uncertain. Some scientists propose eventually encasing it in additional concrete and steel, creating a permanent tomb. Others suggest that future technology might allow for its removal and storage in a more secure facility. But both options are decades away at minimum, and both would require robotic systems capable of working in radiation levels that would destroy current technology almost instantly. For now, the elephant's foot sits in its dark corridor, slowly decaying, still deadly, still waiting. What makes the elephant's foot particularly relevant today is what it represents about nuclear power and nuclear accidents. This isn't just some abstract danger. This is a physical object that will kill you if you get near it, created by a technology we use to generate electricity. It's a reminder that when nuclear power goes wrong, it goes wrong in ways that last for geological timescales. The Chernobyl disaster happened before many people watching this were even born, but the elephant's foot will still be deadly long after we're all gone. Climate change has renewed interest in nuclear power as a carbon-free energy source. and modern reactor designs are vastly safer than the Soviet RBMK reactors that failed at Chernobyl. But the elephant's foot stands as a permanent warning about the consequences of cutting corners, ignoring safety protocols, and underestimating the power of the atom. Every nuclear engineer should be required to look at photographs of it, to understand what they're working with, to respect the incredible forces they're trying to control. There's something almost mythological about the elephant's foot. It's like something from ancient legends, a cursed object in a forbidden place, deadly to approach, impossible to destroy. Except it's not a myth, it's real. It's sitting in a basement in Ukraine right now, emitting radiation that will continue for thousands of years. A monument to the single worst nuclear disaster in human history, and a reminder of our own mortality and the lasting consequences of our mistakes. So the next time someone tells you nuclear power is perfectly safe, or that disasters like Chernobyl could never happen again, think about the elephant's foot. Think about the fact that we created something so dangerous that it can kill you in minutes just by being near it. And we have no way to make it safe, no way to undo what was done. We can only contain it, manage it, and hope that our containment structures last long enough. Because the elephant's foot isn't going anywhere. It will outlast all of us, still deadly, still waiting in the dark. A testament to the day we touched the power of the sun and it burned us.